Jeremy Butterfield has more.
It's supposed to look like a riot, and the scene at William Fleming High School had all the elements.
I'm one of the rioters that the guard and the police force had to take down and arrest, and did very successfully.
In this scenario, everyone has a role to play. The rioters were ready to fight back as Roanoke Police, Roanoke Fire, local National Guard troops, and members of the Virginia Defense Force secured perimeters and moved in to make the arrests.
Prior to 9/11, these organizations couldn't communicate and did not work together. They worked to support each other, but not together. And with the recent events of the last 3 to 5 years, we've become very good at working together, which is very important.
It's very important to have military and police working together, and they always, anytime you question them, they go, well, it's National Guard. They're here for the states. Well, they're not here to come out and quell civil disturbances, because these are also the same troops that we do send to Iraq and we do send to Afghanistan. And so these people are coming back with a whole different mentality of working in a hostile environment to coming to America. So it's setting a bad precedent. But I'm sure you're still not convinced, so we're going to move on. Here's one out of a Tennessee checkpoint, a seatbelt checkpoint that was being set up by the military police out of Tennessee, along with Homeland Security and a few other local agencies. So we're just going to roll that, and this is with a state rep out of Tennessee, Johnny Shaw.
You bet. Now, we played the clip earlier of you on a local news station talking about Army checkpoints. The governor found out, thanks to you and others, and canceled it. Can you just in a nutshell tell us exactly, specifically what was going on?
Yes, I can. First of all, I have got to check. Now, I don't have concrete facts, but I don't think the military has, first of all, any jurisdiction to be checking seatbelts. When you look at the fact of a military unit being out, your daughter, my wife, or someone driving through a roadblock with all of these local officials, the Army and everybody out there, I think it's just going to scare people to death. I think our local and state officials have the staff when needed to check seatbelts, to do a seatbelt check without the Army getting involved, and I just don't think it's a good idea.
Well, obviously, sir, I don't know if you've heard, but yes, it still violates posse comitatus. They haven't completely removed that 1878 law. We know in Mexico and communist China they have troops on the streets. This is a sign of a banana republic, of a third world police state, so that we don't want that. But the larger issue here is that they've announced Homeland Security wants to put 20,000 regular Army troops to patrol America. The Naval War College, the Army War College has said their new job will be engaging us, combat with the American people to stop an insurrection against the banks. So, A, are you aware of that? B, can you tell us specifically what units, how why the Army was going to be out running checkpoints?
Well, I got this news late on Friday, and when I got the news, I immediately jumped on it to try to call some local authorities that I knew first to see what was going on. And when I made the call, I found out at that point in time that the governor had already made the decision to cancel this, and which I was very proud of that. But I am not aware of Homeland Security doing this. I did hear that they would be involved in this roadblock issue on last Friday, but I am not aware of the other part of the question that you asked.
So there you go. They had the Army going out and conducting seatbelt checkpoints because, of course, it's there for your safety. Now we're going to move on to another one. And these are all in Police State 4. You can watch the whole thing. It's got, I mean, we cover it from top to bottom. We cover the FEMA camps. We cover the executive orders. We cover the troops on the streets. We cover the military and police working together. We spotlight G20, where they use the sound cannon on people for the first time. We cover the underwear bomber. We were calling it a false flag from day one. And, of course, we were right, once again, just like this shooter in Colorado, and that's already coming out. Let's move to Arcadia, Iowa, where the guardsmen there were actually conducting drills where they were going house to house. They had different areas set up. This guy was a gun dealer, so they were questioning him. He may have been of interest. But they say this is training, so when we go into Iraq, we're used to working in domestic locations, even though probably a little town in Arcadia, Iowa is not going to look the same as some town in Iraq, but that's their excuse, of course, to just continue this training to get people used to seeing troops on the street. So let's go to that clip now.
So that's part of the preparation. Guardsmen to conduct urban training at Arcadia in April. This is going on, scaled back now. It says in this article, going door to door, asking if they can search homes looking for weapons. And they practice raiding the local gun shop. And this is for domestic operations. Lieutenant Colonel, I really appreciate you coming on such short notice, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
You bet. I saw this article out of the Daily Times Herald in Carroll, Iowa. Have you seen that?
I sure have.
And it's telling us about an urban warfare drill to be held in several towns. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. It's actually a planned training event to provide our soldiers with greater proficiency at what we call cordon and search, which is a mission that, just for a little background, we've deployed nearly 13,000 members of the Iowa National Guard in the global war on terror. And the vast majority of those have been in Iraq and Afghanistan. And one of the missions that they perform in Iraq and Afghanistan on multiple occasions is cordon and search, where basically you are trying to get to an area, cordon it off to make sure everything's safe, and then actually search for caches of weapons or other kinds of contraband which could harm American forces and other
like Fallujah, what we saw in Fallujah.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Exactly. So because of where we're located in Iowa, there are no active duty bases in Iowa, so we kind of have to create our own urban training environments. So the plan on this particular training event was to actually use a small town of about 450 people. The town has actually kind of adopted the unit, which is called Company A, 1st Battalion, 168th Infantry, and they were more than willing to participate in the exercise.
Going through this article, I mean, explaining exactly what they're going to do door to door with the houses, what the checkpoints are going to be simulating.
Sure. When you're talking about cordon and search operations, you've got several different rings of security that you've got to provide in a particular area. And then it's important that people are treated respectfully as you go house to house, as you're looking for certain items, particularly in our experience in Afghanistan and Iraq, looking for weapon caches, whether those have AK-47s, RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, that is, any kind of ammunition or any kind of improvised explosive devices, et cetera, et cetera. And our job, when we go on a cordon search, is to locate those kinds of items. And then there might also be persons of interest that we're interested in that coalition forces want to talk to or apprehend.
Well, let's just boil it down to this. I have video of Army and Marines with role players screaming, "I'm an American, please don't put me in the camp," and the military trying to confiscate their firearms. I mean, certainly you've heard the Army Times and the new directive from Secretary of Defense Robert Gates that they will use the National Guard under federal control for civil insurrection. Are you saying you're not aware of that?
No, I'm certainly aware of that, absolutely. But I think you have to look at the role of the National Guard historically. Is that historically we are used in states for disasters overwhelmingly. And our job is to, number one, be ready for our mission federally, which is to go to war. And number two is to help our fellow citizens here in the United States of America. Those
but
are
the Army
things that we prepare for and train for.
The Army War College 3 weeks ago issued a report saying they're shifting a lot of their focus to engaging the American people and directives on engagement with the American people under NORTHCOM.
Well, you got to remember that the National Guard, 99% of the time, is, if you're talking about peacetime, belongs to the state in which they are located. Only on occasion do they become federalized. One of those examples, of course, is being mobilized and deployed to go to war or peacekeeping or other kinds of federalized missions. But other than that, the National Guard generally in peacetime belongs to the governor of that state.
Well, you're pretty informed on all these issues. Obviously, you're right in the middle of it. Did you hear about the mainstream news articles about Marines in California and other places helping at DWI checkpoints with citizens? Would that violate posse comitatus?
I'm not aware of that. With respect to active duty military, that's called Title 10 when you're on active duty, and they're not allowed to participate in certain kinds of operations under the Posse Comitatus Act.
Does that sound like freedom to you all over the country to have the National Guard at big events like at the Kentucky Derby and the Super Bowl searching bags?
So you can see from that clip, Alex is asking him direct questions, and the lieutenant colonel is tap dancing around him. He's evading him. He tries to just play it off as, oh, we're here for peacetime operations and just to assist the state there. But they're practicing going around confiscating your weapons. We showed that before, that they've done it last week with Katrina, and that they're preparing to do it again. And it could be any disaster. And what they'll do is they will cordon off the area, block all exits out, and go house by house until they get all the guns. And they're not going to be nice about it. They're going to kick in your door at night as they're asking, do you need assistance? So now, just a year and a half ago, I went to Chicago to film Operation Vigilant Guard. We went in, we told them, you know, we were doing a piece on this, we wanted to discuss it. It was a 5-day exercise. They had a terrorist attack on an airplane that blew up over Chicago. There were dead bodies everywhere, which were fake, they were dummies. And then they also did some drills at a local soccer stadium. And so that was their base of operations. Then they went out and did all these other little drills, one of which was a quote-unquote meth lab takedown, where they were working with Polish troops. The Polish troops were there, quote, as observers. But then we'll get to that clip later. But first, let's hear it from the Captain Bright and the Lieutenant Leziak from the Polish Armed Services. Here's that clip.
I'm the program manager for the SURF-P program for the Illinois National Guard. I'm here with Major Leziak from the Polish Epidemiological Response Center of the Polish Armed Forces. We're here participating in a Homeland Security exercise. We'll be working on military support to civil authorities as part of a terrorist scenario where they have a biological weapon. Major Leziak and the Polish Armed Forces have a partnership program with the Illinois National Guard. We do cooperative training and exercises, and it's been very beneficial to both of our services in helping us develop our capabilities. The exercise today and what you'd expect to see will be some terrorist scenarios in which there are multiple casualties. We'll have search and extraction team that will be extracting casualties from different facilities. Those personnel that are extracted would be contaminated, potentially with a biohazard. So we'll have a mass casualty decontamination team that will decontaminate them, and then we have a medical triage and treatment team that will provide medical care to them before they're moved by ambulance, if necessary, to a hospital or other type of long-term care facility. We'll see National Guard cooperating with civilian authorities. Typically when we respond, we only fall under a civilian incident commander because we're in the States. We respond to their needs, their requests. We're basically a force provider and bring specific skills to the table to assist local law enforcement and civil authorities in providing the services and protection to the people in their areas.
My name is Major Leziak. I'm from the Epidemiological Response Center of Polish Armed Forces, and we are here with my soldiers to make a next step in our cooperation with soldiers from Illinois National Guard. This cooperation started 5 years ago. Last year we had a big exercise in Poland, near Warsaw, and this year we have a great opportunity to participate in exercise in Chicago. That's a partnership between Illinois National Guard and the Polish. The state of Illinois is a partnership for Poland. So we have good connections, and this is the reason why we train together from 5 years. So here it's 12, and the second group is 10, and they are designated to a civil support team in another place. So we are divided to do groups to learn as much as possible.
Okay, and is it just Polish Army, or are there other forces?
Yeah, we have also participants from our Ministry of Interior, from fire state of Poland, and from Polish FBI, and they are also